Before we dive deep into understanding death from a spiritual perspective, let's pause for a moment. Death is an end, an inevitable part of life. But is there another way to look at it? On this journey, we'll explore 5 ways enlightened individuals spiritually approach and understand death. These insights not only help us face the end of life more calmly, but also open spiritual doors, leading to a deeper understanding of existence and the meaning of life. Join us in this video as we delve into these new profound perspectives. When considering death, it's essential to notice that trust beyond traditional views brings 3 main perspectives into focus: atheism, naturalism, and religious doctrine. Atheism views death as a complete end of existence, nothingness. Naturalism, rooted in scientific understanding, links consciousness directly with brain activity, suggesting that death marks the end of personal experience. Various religious doctrines, however, offer visions of an afterlife, often describing worlds like heaven or hell based on one's actions and beliefs in life. However, there is a 4th view often overlooked in contemporary culture. While the concept of an afterlife is frequently tied to religious contexts, primarily the notion of heaven, it's actually more nuanced. It encompasses a mix of personal scientific inquiry, intuitive understanding, ancient wisdom, and logical reasoning. These explanations see the universe as interconnected, shaping our understanding of death. This multifaceted approach raises questions about the afterlife and how to comprehend this inevitable phenomenon from a spiritual perspective. We'll explore 5 profound approaches to accepting death, embraced by spiritually enlightened individuals. First, understanding death as part of a creative cycle in the grand scheme of existence. Death isn't just an end or a beginning. It's part of a continuous cycle of creativity and regeneration. This process can be likened to the life cycle of cells in our bodies. When a cell dies, it's seamlessly replaced by another, contributing to our body's innovation and continuity. We usually don't consider this cell replacement as death because it's just one half of the body's creative cycle. Similarly, when our physical form ceases to exist, it decomposes and reintegrates into the earth, participating in the natural recycling process. Meanwhile, our consciousness, or what some might call the memory matrix, transitions into a new form. This could be the rebirth of consciousness in another body or realm, depending on different philosophical or spiritual beliefs. In nature, death is an inherent part of the natural cycle, recycling both matter and consciousness. It emphasizes the eternal flow of life, where endings lead to new beginnings and transformation is constant. By viewing death this way, we can appreciate it as a crucial driver of creativity in the endless dance of existence. Seeing death as a transition suggests that what we call death is not the end but a shift from one aspect of reality to another, from matter to spirit, from visible to invisible. In this transition, the essence of the soul, including self-awareness, memory, and certain personality traits, remains intact. This view sees consciousness as separate from the physical body, embarking on a new journey beyond the physical world when the brain ceases to function. Such a perspective raises the question, why do we call this process death if it's not the end of existence but a continuation in a different form? This interpretation aligns with many philosophies, spiritual traditions, and religious beliefs that consider our current life a temporary shelter. Death, in this view, is a return to our original state or origins. This perspective reshapes our understanding of life and death, showing they are not opposites but interconnected stages in a continuous cycle of existence. Embracing death as a rebirth, it can be seen as a door leading to a new beginning, a transformative renewal. This concept includes the idea of metaphorical rebirth, where we remember our true selves after leaving the physical form. In this view, death is not the end but a transition to another state of being. During this journey, the soul passes through a reflection phase, reconsidering life experiences with the help of spiritual guides or angels. This time allows souls to interact and reflect on their experiences, gaining insights and understanding lessons to prepare for further development. The regenerative process is seen as a conscious choice, where the soul selects a new body and life plan based on the lessons it seeks to learn in the next rebirth. This deliberate decision to return to the physical world with a new purpose provides an opportunity for continuous learning and spiritual growth. As the Buddha profoundly taught, contemplating the birth and death of all things, even for a day, is more valuable than living 100 years without thinking about beginnings and ends. This wisdom encourages us to ponder the nature of existence, realizing that every end carries the seeds of a new beginning. Thus, death is not just an end but an essential stage in the ongoing journey of the soul. Death also signifies the destruction of the self, marking the disintegration of the ego. It represents the moment when everything that defines you ceases to exist, making way for transformation and renewal. In the physical sense, all personal aspects of self-awareness, thoughts, beliefs, values, and everything that defines you as an individual, disappear at the moment of death. The ego, along with personal ambitions, ceases to exist as the mind and body die. This marks a return to the soul's original state, free from the identification with thoughts and forms that shaped your earthly identity. Your true self transcends your work, past experiences, and personal reflections. Your consciousness then integrates back into the universal consciousness, shedding its personality and preparing for a new beginning. Therefore, death is not the end of consciousness but the end of subjective identity. It's a transition from personal existence to a greater, more expansive state of being, returning to the soul's nature unbounded by the ego. Accepting death as an awakening raises the question: are you truly awake right now? Your senses are alert, you're aware of your body, and you know you're not sleeping. But is being physically awake the same as truly living? This inquiry invites a deeper reflection on the nature of existence and awareness. How can we be sure of our lives? Let's consider the possibility that our current lives might be like a complex simulation, a sophisticated matrix designed for souls to evolve and experience the contrast of duality. In this context, what we call death might not be the end but rather a shift in perception. Medically, we're still alive, our hearts are beating, our lungs are breathing. But from a metaphysical standpoint, life can be likened to a dream, a complex play orchestrated in our consciousness. When we die, it could be an awakening, a realization that our earthly experiences are merely scenes in a cosmic play. It's like we've been sleeping in the waiting room of the universe, only to wake up and understand the true nature of our existence. This perspective challenges us to rethink the boundaries between life and death, dreams and reality. It encourages us to see our life's journey as part of a larger spiritual awakening, urging us to live fearlessly and embrace the reality of death. Spiritually enlightened individuals often share the understanding that there is no need to fear death. It's the ego that holds this fear, not the soul. The soul knows that death is just a transition, a familiar passage it has traveled many times, associated with a metaphorical death and rebirth. 5 spiritual ways to look at death. Thinking about death from a spiritual angle can give you some pretty deep insights that go beyond what most people think. Here are 5 smart ways to understand what it means to move from life to death. 1. Consciousness keeps going. Some folks believe that death isn't the end of your awareness. It's more like changing from one state to another. They think our consciousness sticks around after our body is gone, just in a different form or place. 2. Expanding awareness. This view sees death as a way for our consciousness to grow. It's like breaking free from the limits we have in life. Some people think our individual awareness joins up with a bigger, universal consciousness, like becoming one with everything. 3. Growing as a person. From this angle, death is just another step in how our soul grows. Life on earth is one chapter in a longer story, a time to learn and grow up. Death is the doorway to more spiritual growth. 4. Part of nature's cycle. This approach sees death as a natural part of life's cycle. Just like how nature goes through birth, growth, decay, and rebirth, human life follows the same pattern. 5. Exploring the unknown. This view is all about embracing the mystery of death. Instead of trying to figure out exactly what happens, it's about being open to all sorts of possibilities. It sees death as an adventure into uncharted territory, looking at death as a journey. Seeing death as a journey into the unknown gives us a different way to understand it spiritually. This view pushes us to think beyond traditional beliefs and see death as an important part of the bigger picture of existence. These spiritual views help us see the shift from life to death not as an ending, but as the next step in our spiritual journey. It's like moving between different forms and dimensions. What's ego death and why does it happen? Most people think of death as something dark, sad, and scary. But ego death is different. It's actually about becoming enlightened, discovering your true self, and breaking through limits. To keep it simple, your ego is your sense of self. It developed early in your life as a way to understand yourself as separate from others. But sometimes the ego can get in the way of living a good life. That's why many people think it needs to die. What people mean by ego death isn't that the ego actually goes away. Instead, it's when we become aware of our ego and stop letting it run our lives. It's a brief experience where we see beyond our usual identity. The ego realizes it's not what really defines you. Ego death comes with a lot of self-awareness, awakening, and peace. If you're on a spiritual path, it can be one of the most amazing experiences you can have. But if you don't understand your spiritual side or if you fight against it, it might feel pretty rough. Why people seek ego death? These days, more and more people are trying to experience ego death. It's become a big part of many folks' spiritual journeys. Here's why people might want to go through it. Better self-control. Even if you're already pretty happy with yourself, ego death can change how you see things. It might lead you to more clarity and success in the long run. Breaking self-limits. Our ego often keeps us stuck in one way of thinking, like we're living in a shell. When you step back from your ego, you can break out of your current mindset and do things you thought you couldn't. Seeing things differently. We often define ourselves in pretty rigid ways. Ego death helps you break free from the boxes you've put yourself in. It puts you in a better position to question what you believe and find some real peace and clarity. Breaking down barriers. It's a great way to break down big ideas like race or religion that are often deeply ingrained in our minds. The stages of ego death. Ego death is different for everyone, but there are some common stages most people go through. Stage 1. Spiritual awakening. This is when you first start to wake up to how much your ego controls you. It's the beginning of your journey beyond your ego. Stage 2. The dark night of the soul. After you've woken up to your ego, you start trying to make sense of everything. You'll find yourself asking a lot of questions about things that now seem different from before. It can be a confusing time because you're seeing stuff in a new light. Stage 3. Exploration and curiosity. In this stage, you learn more about yourself and start to feel the emptiness you might feel. This is when you begin to live in a more peaceful and enlightened way. Stage 4. Soul growth and enlightenment. Now you're stable in your new peace and awareness. You've discovered who you really are in a deep way. You'll notice you've let go of many old habits. There's no more struggle with your ego because you've found your true identity. How to achieve ego death. Before you try to kill your ego, you need to understand a few things. Know why you want to do it. Understand that your spiritual self isn't random. Be aware of what might happen if you go down this path. Many people try to force ego death, but that can be risky. Be careful and make sure you're ready to let go before you start. If you're sure about what you want, here are some ways people trigger ego death. Go to retreats and seminars that guide you through it. Try different breathing exercises. Practice specific types of meditation. Remember, it's important to be careful and know what you're getting into before you try to experience ego death. Some people follow spiritual teachers or start on a journey using different states of mind. This might involve dancing, chanting, or other mystical practices. You could also try joining spiritual traditions that lead to ego death. What does ego death feel like? Before you try it, you might want to know how ego death feels. Your emotions will probably be intense. It can feel terrible or exciting, or you might swing between these two extremes. Most people experience both during the process. What happens after? After ego death comes rebirth. You'll have a new sense of self without the barriers that used to limit you. This experience powerfully wakes up your mind and can change your life forever. If you haven't gone through it yet, you might wonder what to do next. Ego death isn't the end of your spiritual journey. It often inspires people to find their purpose and dig deeper into spirituality. The bigger picture. Ego death isn't just about one person ending. It's a natural part of life cycle, like how matter and consciousness are always changing. Understanding ego death helps us see that it's not just about our physical selves, but also about our thoughts and spiritual side. This topic makes us think about what life and existence really mean. More importantly, understanding ego death helps us deal with it in everyday life and find ways to live that feel meaningful and satisfying. It teaches us to appreciate every moment, every experience, and every person around us. We realize that the end isn't a loss, but part of ongoing change and growth. In the end, by asking questions and looking for answers, we can keep exploring the wonder of life and the reality of death. From there, we can learn how to live more fully and meaningfully.